Welcome to the Dreamer Podcast, episode 4, and with me this week is Ben Hayes from Lindsay Park Racing. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you on. Lot to get through and learn about you today, Ben. And I think I've done a bit of research on you. You might correct me with a few things, but you're 33 years of age now. Been training with your dad since you were 24, I believe, in 2016 when you first kicked off.
Yep.
But we'll start off when you were a younger fella. I know, obviously, people know the Hayes dynasty, and obviously Colin, your grandfather, was kicked off the dynasty. I'm not sure about your great grandfather, but of Colin, was there? Do you have any early memories of Colin? And I know you were a young boy when he passed away, but was there any sort of memories you had of him?
Yeah, look, I was very young. I was about 5 or 6, so my memories aren't great. I only remember him as Pa. I wish I knew him as a champion horse trainer because, boy, I had lots of questions to ask him. But he was a great grandfather. He used to play a game with the jelly beans, so whenever I saw him, I knew he had jelly beans, and he used to put jelly beans, and I had to guess the hand, and I was always correct. If I chose the wrong one, he'd go from the other one. So that was good. They're my memories of him, and obviously he was old. I remember seeing him before he passed away, and it was all very sad, but loved him very much and just knew him as Pa, and he was a fantastic man, and everyone speaks very highly of him, and he has great reputation in industry. So very proud for him to be my grandfather.
Yeah, and have you gone back and looked at his past and what he achieved, and looked at old video footage of horses that he may have trained?
Yeah, I have. There's so much old footage of him back in the day. Cameras were just coming out, and there's documentaries of him, and there's lots of footage of Dad and him, Colin together, and Peter as well. What he set up for our family, he created a training dynasty, and we're now the third generation Hayeses coming through, and luckily enough, we're able to keep it going. So, he set up Dad, and Dad's been able to set us boys up as well, which we're very thankful of. We've got amazing facilities at Euroa and great facilities at Flemington and now Pakenham. So we're growing, and we're doing our best to get good results, David.
Yeah. And did you ever live at Lindsay Park in South Australia?
Yep. I was there from 1 to 5, and as a young boy, we went to Hong Kong when Dad went to train in Hong Kong. I think it was 2000.
Was that about 5 years old when you went there, is it?
Yeah, I was about 5. 1995, I reckon we went, 1996. We might have. I was in Hong Kong for about 10 years. About 8 years, and then my parents were there 10 years because they didn't love me. They sent me to boarding school in Australia. Okay. I'm joking.
What did you go to, like a school over there which was for expats or something like that, English speaking?
So I went to a school as a young kid called Honlock Ewan, which was from year 1 to year 7. That was an English school, and I picked up a horrible English international accent. You wouldn't have known I was from Australia. I was very posh because they're all English kids, and South African, and every culture you could imagine. And then when I got into year 7 and 8, I went to the Australian International School. So only kids with Australian passports could go to that school, and it was a good school, and I had a lot of fun.
And was the children at those schools, were they children of the other trainers as well?
Well, at the time when I was over there, I was with Craig Williams was riding, Damien Oliver was there as young riders. Chad Schofield, I used to play with him in the playground all the time. And Glenn was there. They're all riding, and we used to be. When I was there, I was probably the oldest kid, and I was like the ringleader of all the kids, and we used to muck around and go play in the playground. And back then, you weren't allowed to go to the races. You could only go and watch from a tree. So we used to go watch and see if my dad trained a winner or Chad's dad rode a winner. And that was probably our memories of just mucking around, doing what we want and enjoying life.
And so did you have an interest in horse racing when you were that young? Or, I mean, I know you couldn't go to the races. So when did your love of horse racing sort of develop?
As a young kid, I always loved animals and I was very interested in horses. And when I was in Hong Kong, I wasn't really allowed in the stables and I wasn't allowed to go to the races, but I was very young. But what my parents did do is they gave me pony riding lessons, which I hated. But I learnt the basics. I learned how to trot. I learnt how to canter. I could ride a horse and I didn't like it, so we stopped. And then I came back to Australia, and the way Dad got us boys into it, every time we came back to Australia, he got the ponies and took us riding around the property, and we enjoyed that much more. We used to canter up the hills and just have a little bit of fun with the horses. And then again, I probably wasn't that interested. And when I got really interested, when I was probably 15, 16 at school, and all my mates started asking for tips, and I thought, oh, I better start learning. So I started going in on Saturdays and Sundays with Dad, started riding the pony, and then Dad threw me on a couple racehorses. Got great memories of leading Craig Williams out in Fields of Omar the morning of the race. Craig was cracking the shits because he wasn't on Miss Finland. Couldn't do the weight.
Right, okay.
And then Fields of Omar comes out and wins, and I always have a good laugh with him because old Fieldsy was being a little grumpy that morning. And he was going, he was giving him a telling off on the horse, and it was good memories of that. And I just started riding, and then I finished school. I went to uni. Got a bachelor small business entrepreneurship, and I got my pocket money through riding track work. And the deal was, if I said I was going to be at work, I had to be at work. I couldn't ever not rock up. And Dad was basically, he was lenient, and basically I was working about 4 days a week, just earning some pocket money, riding track work. I used to ride, anywhere from 4 to 8 horses a morning, and I really loved it. I loved hanging out with the staff, and then I just slowly started doing more and more and more. And then Dad said, right, you're going overseas. Sent me overseas, and I went work the first year summer with Charlie Hills, which was so much fun. I was just a track rider.
What age were you at this stage? When I went
overseas, I reckon I would have been 20 or 21, which was a good age to go because you're that little bit more mature. And I didn't know what to expect. I just went to Charlie's, and they do it very different over there. They have strings, and you ride out in strings, and you ride up the hill, and they bowl up the hill at about 16, 17 seconds to the furlong. So it's like you're galloping every morning.
So you were riding at Newmarket, were you?
No, so Lambourne first. So Charlie Hills trains in Lambourne, which is the other training centre. And he has a private training track, and a little bit like our stable. His old man Barry Hills was a champion horse trainer, and Charlie had just taken over, and he's a similar age to what I was now when he was looking after me. So I had a lot of fun. I made great friends over there. I came back, started working full-time for Dad, and then I went back again and went and worked for John Gosden, where I actually thought when I was going over to ride again. And I walked in with all my gear and sat down in the office, and John Gosden's a very intimidating man. He's someone I really appreciate, I really respect. I think he's a great trainer, and he sat me down. He said, no, you've graduated. You're now got to be a pupil assistant. So I got to sit with John. I had to do the worksheets with him, just sat down with him and do the worksheets every night. He had great assistant trainers. So I was basically the assistant to the assistant trainers. And Barry and Gary were great. They taught me so much, and it was a really good learning experience. And I was on the ground. The way they work, I was probably in the office to 7 o'clock every night because they did their worksheets late. And it was one of the better learning experience I've had. It was really good. And then I come back to Australia, and I was working, and then Dad invites me into the partnership, which really surprised me. I didn't think I was ready at all. I was a bit scared at the time, but Dad said, no, you're ready. You just got to start learning and throw you in the deep end. And how he made me learn is he sent me to Adelaide with about 20 horses. And he said, you're in charge of this stable, and you get your staff, you manage your staff, and went from there. So I've been talking a long time, but that's my journey into racing. Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you with John Gosden?
I was with him for 6 months, and at that time I was also travelling Criterion for Dad. So I get up at 4 a.m, ride Criterion first, and then I go back, finish my horse, and then I go work for John. And they don't finish till about 12.
So while Criterion was racing in the UK, you're working for John Gosden and looking after the horse. So Criterion was in his barn, I assume.
Yeah, correct. So John was very kind. He really helped us out. He basically came and helped us look after the horse. He was quite challenging when he came to into England. He came from Hong Kong to England. He got travel sickness. So he arrived, and the first 3 weeks he only trotted and cantered. He got quite sick. Then we built him up, and he was able to run over Ascot, and then he went to York, and he ran well over there without being fantastic. He ran into a couple really good horses, but when he came back from England, he ran the Caulfield Stakes first up, which is a Group 1, and then he ran second in the Cox Plate to Winx, and then he ran third in the Melbourne Cup, only beaten about a length to Prince of Penzance, which is very famous.
He was a very good horse, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So from all those background, from going to the UK and working with your dad, who would you say is your mentor? Who has been the greatest influence on you at that point of your career?
Apart from Dad, I'd probably say John Gosden. He was a great teacher. He'd explain why he made decisions, and he always involved me. And he's a really good explainer of things and explain why he did things. And John was great, and also his assistant trainer, Barry. He was really good. Barry O'Dowd, who's been his assistant trainer for 30 years. He could be a trainer himself. But those two really, really taught me a lot. And I've still got a great relationship with both of them. His son, Thady, actually came over and worked for us. So Thady now trains with John, his dad. So, no, we have a good relationship and respect.
I was going to say, do you still keep in contact?
When I go back to England, I like to pop in and go say hi. We keep in contact. When he travelled a couple of horses down here. We helped out Thady when he needed a couple things, and we're just helpful, and we're friends, and we've both looked after each other, and that's a mutual relationship, which is great.
Yeah. And when you were doing that track work riding, was there ever a time when that you wanted to be a jockey, a professional jockey?
I was never light enough, and to be honest, I was a good rider, but I could ride 90% of the yard, but I was never going to be a jockey. I just enjoyed it. I just had fun. I think this industry, you got to enjoy the industry. It's your life. It's not your job. And that's what I did when I was over there. I just enjoyed it. I soaked it in, and I didn't realise at the time, but I was learning a lot more than I thought I was. When I came back to Australia, you realise it's really hard to explain. I'm not very good at explaining it, but just those experiences are so important to have, and then it really broadens your horizon and you're more open thinker. John used to do that. He used to gallop twice a week. Every horse galloped twice a week, and these were his days. And just little things, and how he worked them up the hill, and what do you do if there was a big headwind, and just little things like that you pick up, because generally trainers all train very, very similar, but they all train slightly different in different ways. So it's the basics of training.
It seems like the younger generation of trainers here in Australia, a lot of them have had that UK experience from from conversations I've had with people. It seems like it's a good, sort of apprenticeship into training on your own here.
Yeah, definitely.
So in 2016, your dad, asked you to join him as a training partner, and as you said, he made you, go to South Australia. What successes do you remember with him? What was your first Group 1 winner with your dad?
Yep. It was a horse called His Rocky, won the Toorak Handicap. It was a super win. It was a very good effort. At that time, though, I felt like I was cheating a little bit because I was the third trainer. I was in partnership with Tom and my dad, and I was like the third one on the partnership. But still, it was as the first Group 1. It was an amazing feeling. Unfortunately, I was in Adelaide, so I wasn't able to be there for it. But it was still a great feeling, and it was a very good win by the horse.
Which was the first Group 1 win that you were actually there for? Do you remember that one?
The best one was Boom Time. It's when he won the Caulfield Cup. That one for me was amazing. It was owned by us. It was a Hayes family owned horse, and that one I remember very, very well. Won it so young in my career, and to win it and own the horse as well, it was probably the best feeling you could possibly get in racing, which you could imagine, David. Like it was I haven't won a Group 1
yet, mate. So we're trying to win one together.
We'll get you one.
That's it. And I know that was Corey Parrish's first Group 1 winner, Boom Times Caulfield Cup. So, I'm not sure what the price was. I think it was about 35 to 1. Did you actually have any expectations before that race that he would, he was a winning chance?
Amazing story, David, because he wasn't actually got a run until literally 10 minutes before acceptances closed. And that was because there was a horse pulled out late. It was a favourite for the Caulfield Cup. Unfortunately, in his final gallop, he went amiss, and then that meant our horse got in. And I remember we were in the hut with Dad and Tom, and we're looking at each other, and we said, he can finish top 10 because we owned it. So to accept is a lot of money, and you want to work out if you got to get the money back. And Dad was like, it was a very good run. And we're like, let's accept. And so we don't have a jockey, and he's super light. Corey Parrish was trotting past on the horse out the hut and said, Corey, you want to ride in the Caulfield Cup? And he went, put him on. And the whole story goes from there. And he gave the horse an amazing ride, came up the rail, and he went on to win. And it's just it was awesome. Like the horse wasn't even running until 10 minutes before acceptances closed. And the only reason we ran is because he got a run in the last second. We weren't even going to accept with him. And we had four horses in the race that year.
That was fantastic. I mean, the fact that you owned a large chunk of him was probably, great for the family as well.
Yeah. He built a barn.
Then your dad decided. Sorry.
He built a whole barn at our farm at Euroa. It's called the Boom Time Barn.
Actually, let's go through Euroa. So you talked about Euroa before.
Yep.
How long's Euroa been in, the planning and the development? I mean, I've been out there. I think it's magnificent. It's one of the best training facilities I've ever seen. There may be equivalent around, but I haven't seen it. So how long has that development been? And were you part of any of that development, or was that your grandfather or your father?
Yep. So originally it was bought just as a spelling property. I reckon about 30 years ago now. We've owned it for a while. And it was an old cattle farm. It was bought as a spelling property because we just didn't have anywhere to spell our horses. And we just kept it like that. And then Dad was looking for somewhere to train in Victoria. He was looking at all these different locations. I remember going and looking with him, looking at places in Tullarook. We looked at buying Werribee, using that as a training operation. And every time the issue was the property didn't have enough water. And then he kind of wasn't anything to do with me, but Dad and Mum realised that we already had the property to develop that we bought. So that's when they decided to develop Euroa. We started off with one barn and one track, which was the first track we installed, which is a 1,200 metre poly track. And we started off as more a pre-trainer centre. and he just built from there. So what's really cool about that is Will, JD and I, my sister, all us kids have been able to watch that property grow the whole time. I remember when the trees were just tiny, just little shrubs in the ground, and now they're huge, and we've been able to develop it, bring all the best things from Anguston to Lindsay Park, Euroa, and it's a great training facility now because it flows. We can get the work done well. The horses have great facilities. We've got water walkers, we've got treadmills, we've got 5 different tracks now that we can work our horses on, and we've got the swimming pool, and I think it's a great property to really keep a horse happy and sound.
Yeah, well, I mean, the facilities there are amazing, but how long did that take to effectively develop from that first thought to where it is today? I mean, there is so many facilities there, the multiple tracks and the water walkers, and I know you've got your own vet clinic there and,
Yeah.
and things like that. So how long has that taken to really develop?
Probably good 20 years. And I'd say the property's still being developed now. We put in a lot of fencing last year. We're currently redoing our poly track, which is 20 years old. So we had to redo it. So that's been redone now. And it's a property that I would say Dad's comfortably, or our family has comfortably spent $30-40 million on now. And we funded it through selling our Lindsay Park property in Anguston, and that funded it. And I remember at the time it was a very hard time for Lindsay Park with all the transitioning, all the staff moving from South Australia to Victoria, who was coming, who was staying. You're learning the property, which is a real thing. You've got to learn how to train your horses on properties and what the tracks do and how horses get fit, and if you're overtraining them or undertraining them. And I remember Dad had a really tough couple of years because there was just so much change and so much learning. And to Dad's credit, he got back on track and got the place humming. And there's definitely been lots of ups and downs, but the whole development of the property now is fantastic. So many little things you wouldn't think of when developing a property you have to put in, like the drainage, which tracks need where, when it rains, where the water runs, and you get big storms and washing it away. So it's been a lot of thought into it. And even today, like, we're changing little things now to try and make it flow better and work better.
Is that due to feedback from you, JD, and Will, or is that the general manager or anyone else involved in that?
It's a mixture of everyone. We've recently, last 5 years, we put in a new 600-metre round track, very similar to a track at Flemington. And then we've just added. We've changed things around that we thought would work that didn't work. You experiment with the water walker, and if you can get a horse fit in the water walker, which we worked out you couldn't, but when they came out, they're all the rage. They're more a recovery tool and great for freshening. And you just play around with, that's how you learn. It's how you learn how to train a horse, is you try something, you see if it works, you understand what you did, and if it worked, you continue doing it. If it didn't work, you try something else slightly different, and then you try it again, and then you keep tinkering and working it out. And like Dad had his way of training, we probably train similar to Dad, but slightly different to him as well. We have our own way, and like Dad he's been training for so long now, and he's gone through a heap of change. Technologies now in racing, and we probably use technology a bit more than Dad. And the way everything's changed in racing, the way horses are fed, everyone's got a much even spread. It's more fairer because everyone gets the same tracks. It's just and that's why racing's so competitive now within the training ranks. Everyone is good, and everyone can get a good horse.
And your dad decided to go back to Hong Kong with your mother. I'm not sure exactly when it was. It was about 2020 or something like that, I think it was.
Yeah. It was about, we're in our third year of training now.
Third year. 21,
third year. So it'll be nearly 4 years. And that was a very tough time for our business. At the time, we had a big combo. So Dad decided to leave. Dad left. And when Dad got to Hong Kong, COVID hit, which was tough. So no one could come to our stable. And in that time, Tom decided to go train by himself as well. And also Sheikh Hamdan tragically passed away, who was our biggest owner, who had about probably 40 horses with us. They unfortunately all got sold and moved on, which is what happens. And the stable, when we took over, JD and I, probably reduced to about, we went from having around 220 and work with Tom to we lost about 100 horses to 120. And a little bit stressful, but all we had to do is just keep working, and we're very lucky. We didn't know it, but we had Mr. Brightside coming through, and we had horses like Gentleman Roy, got the opportunity to train Here to Shock, and they're now 7-year-olds and racing really well and had a lot of success.
Yeah, well, JD, when he first joined you, he's about 5 years younger than you, isn't he, JD?
Yep.
So, he was a really young lad when he first joined with you. It must have been quite, I don't know, overwhelming, being two young guys taking over a dynasty, losing all of those amount of horses, and obviously the results weren't, just coming naturally. Was there a period there where both of you doubted yourselves, or did you have a good structure around you to help you through those times?
Oh, definitely. I always question myself. It was scary because there was a lot of pressure. Your people were saying, are they good enough? Lindsay Park's in trouble. They're losing horses. Other people were coming in and buying horses and poaching them off us and going to other stables. And you have to deal with that. Owners always questioning what you're doing. We just had to work around it, work really hard. And luckily, we pretty much started getting results straight away. Horses were running well, and we were learning. A lot of staff left. We lost a lot of staff, but the blessing behind it all was JD and I at the time and my sister were able to get the team that believed in us, and we've been able to grow from there. So everyone who works for us now, who's stuck with us, they've enjoyed the success and the run that we've had. And it's just a combination of working, not worrying about what other people think, concentrating on what you can do, and just if it's not working, you try something different. You just go back, you go through your processes, you work out what you've done wrong or what you've done right, and then you just continue and keep doing it. It was super stressful. Like, I had days where I was, being really honest, in tears. I was just so much stress. Like, I can't explain it. Like, I'd come home from work and you try out tough at track work. And, you had Dad on the phone, but Dad wasn't able to come back. And we just, JD was so new as well. He was learning as well on the job, and he's now doing a fantastic job. And then, of course, Will's come in as well in the last year. And it's good. Like, we're having a great run now. We're currently the second on the premiership in Victoria, and having probably our best year we've had so far. But all that, you look back and all the hard work is actually a blessing. It wasn't easy at all. Yes, we had the best facilities. Yes, we had, a good head start, but you still got to get results and perform. And I feel we've done that well enough. Yeah.
You talk about your sister, who I've never met. Is she older or younger, and is she involved in the business at all?
She is. She's not involved in the horsey part. She runs the business side of it. Yeah. She makes all those hard decisions, deals with staff, and does all that kind of business back end. She comes to the races occasionally on the big days, but she's currently had 2 kids, so she's been full mum mode, and she's just recently come back and started working more.
Okay, that's great. And then, so you and JD, you got Mr. Brightside, and then in April 2022, he wins the Doncaster. I think that's the first Group 1 you had together?
Yes, it was. Yeah. And what was cool about that, David, was Lindsay Park and my dad had never won a Doncaster before. So,
right, okay.
So we're quick to rub it in. It's a
Were
great
you
race
both
to win.
there on the day? Were
Yes,
you
we were.
both there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in
How
disbelief.
how did you feel? How did you feel thinking about all of those tough times? How did you feel, getting to the top of the tree again and winning such a prestigious race like the Doncaster? Was that something that you felt, intense proudness because you'd done
Mhm.
it? You did it without your dad.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was us proving that we're able to develop a horse from its maiden to win a Group 1. Brightside did that, and it's turned out he's a champion and he makes us look good.
Yeah,
But we still were able to get him there. He got in a lightweight, and it's more it's relief. You're just proud of what you've done, and you're also showing everyone that you're able to do it, and it does take pressure off. People are happy to listen to your opinion more, and it's more respect. I think a lot of people have more respect for you, and then it gets a little bit easier, and you're always working hard and trying to get those results. So yeah, I was just super proud. I can't explain it.
yeah.
I still get
And,
goosebumps
and
thinking about it.
did you feel that was the turning point for you and JD? Did more clients start coming back, or new clients start coming through the stable because of that victory, or did you feel that it happened before then?
No, we're having a nice run going into it. We're still getting winners, but I think Brightside was probably our banner horse. He was the horse that
Yeah,
he went through and won 6 in a row. He got beaten in a Group 1 that far and finished 4th in his first prep.
yeah,
And we were going into our first autumn, and we didn't have many runners. I think he was almost our only runner that year in the autumn in the Doncaster. And for him to win was just great because you're able to go to that big carnival in Sydney and you can show you're able to travel a horse and win. One thing I will say to our success is also when I was talking about staff behind us, we're just the face. But there's people like our racing manager, Dom. I won't start naming people, but what we did really concentrate on is our form. And my wife, Grace, she basically quit her job at racing.com when it all changed and came and worked for us. And she really helps us with all our form behind the scenes. It's something we really focus on. And she's the hardest worker that I know. And I think what she's really helped Will, JD and I, the team behind us, is with our placement of horses and finding the right race to get them in the right race and win for the owners. So I think that's one of the big reasons we've really focused on our form going into races. We focus on it. Grace is a great reader of data, and she explains to us really well what works well. So yeah, that's another reason for the success. And obviously, with the horses winning, brings more confidence from your owners. People want to invest with you. We really work on our communication. You go back to your basics, just work on your communication. Make sure the owners have a good time. And even if the horse loses, you got to make sure they enjoyed the experience. Sometimes you can't. Everyone's disappointed when a horse runs poorly, but as long as you do your best and you know you've tried to do your best and get the best result. But yeah, I think
yeah.
it's
And I
just a
think
combination of all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very evident that because we're obviously involved with your stable now, that there is a good, strong team around you. There's a lot of good experience as well, experienced people behind
Yeah.
you as well
Yeah.
that will also help you. And there's also youth. I know someone like Sarah at Pakenham, who
Correct.
looks after your Pakenham stable.
Yeah.
Very young, very very good with owners, and very approachable. And those type of people are all around you. And you three guys yourself are very approachable. And I know I've got that feedback from owners within our group as well. I think then you went on and had well, I was actually going to talk about, obviously race planning is one thing, but one of the things that I've noticed that you guys have really become probably the leaders in now. I know you're second in the premiership and Kieran is above you. But one of the things that you probably dominate more is the 2-year-old winners.
Yeah.
And you seem to have a real knack of getting the 2-year-olds, placed right and winning very early on in their preparations. What are you? is there any key to that? Why do you think that you do that better? Is it Euroa, or is it something else that you do? You seem to do that better than other stables.
Yeah. It is something we focus on. We always, when you go to sales, I think it's the type of horse you buy. You look for a horse that can be early, and a lot of people do that when they go to sales. They like an early type that looks like a run.
Yeah.
Us Australians really like to buy a fast horse that will hopefully get a result quickly. I think it all starts from there, and we've been lucky. We've got a good team when we go to sales. Starting now, we're going to Hunter Valley very soon to start looking for the Magic Millions. But we've got Dean Hawthorne, Josh Ricks, who works for the team. We've got Dave McKellar, who helps with all our vetting, and you can really trust when we buy a horse, we've done our homework. And not saying that we'll have issues down the track, but we've bought a horse that will be sound, it's got good wind, and hopefully have a good result. So it's very important, the education as well, and that's one thing we did change. We now have a really good breaker called Sean Nolan. He educates our horses before they come to us, and we've just got a really good process at home that gets the horses up and running. We can work out which ones are fast and have early speed, and we don't necessarily push them hard, but the horses that cope with training and can get to the races, we give them the opportunity. And quite often, yes, we've had a lot of, this year particularly, we've had a good year of horses, and they've been able to get to the races early and run well. I think we've had 4 winners, and we've Quinella 3 of the races. So no, it's been a very good start.
I think your stats last year was just as strong early as well. I mean, in February 2023, you had Little Bros, and he won the Blue Diamond. And I think that year alone, you had something like, double figures in 2-year-old winners before the Blue Diamond. And that really showed when he won the Blue Diamond, the skill of you and JD in bringing up these 2-year-olds. And again, have you felt that there's been, more owners and more people coming to you because of that sort of 2-year-old success?
Yeah, I think so. It was something that our father was very good at. He was very good at getting a 2-year-old up and early and running. And all we had to do is talk to Dad, really run through. And when we took over, we changed a couple of things, what we were doing with the 2-year-olds, and they worked. And I think, the first year was fantastic. We had good horses like Arkansas Kid, who's still racing now and racing very competitively. Little Bros won the Blue Diamond. Unfortunately, he's broken down. He went to Hong Kong and broke his tendon. And then, what I really take a lot of pride in is they run early, but then they train on as well. They actually come out and race as 3-year-olds and be competitive. We don't push them so hard that they can't train on. So it's a nice, you're juggling. If they're ready to be pushed, you can push them. If they're not ready, you back off. And then you get the nice waves of horses coming to the races ready to go. But definitely learnt from Dad there, JD and I. We talked when we picked his brain. He's always been very good. I think Dad won the Blue Diamond 4 years in a row, Quinella at 3.
He did.
He knows how to train, and that's definitely rubbed off on us boys.
Yeah, and does JD and Will ride track work at Euroa? Are they still riding?
I think JD's semi-retired now, but Will still enjoys riding. He goes to the Pakenham quite a lot and rides out, because Pakenham is quite tricky to actually watch work there. And so it's riding out, you see just as much. And he does that. He rides when we're short, but he's just come out of a football career, so he's the fit one of us Hayes boys. And if I had to ride, I could, but I'm a bit retired, I'll need to watch. Yeah.
That's right. But do you feel that the feedback that Will get you through that is an extra benefit as well, or is it just like any other track work rider?
It's a feel. Like some Will gives great feedback. Every rider does, and you kind of learn in training. You listen to some people more than others, and you acknowledge it, and you again. Sometimes if you listen to people, they lead you down a rabbit hole and ends up being nothing. So you just work out who you listen to. And, everyone you've got to respect what they say, because they ride the horse, they actually feel the horse. And if they say something, you're silly if you don't, investigate it after.
You'd have to have your own track work riders in Euroa. They must live on Euroa, wouldn't they? Because there's not a lot around Euroa other than that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're big business now. Big business. I think we employ
it is.
nearly
Yeah. How many
190
people
people.
90 people at Euroa, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So all up, and that's all the office staff and everyone. So no, it's we've got to train winners to pay the staff.
Correct. And with that bloodstock work that you talked about with Dean, Josh, and David, how much do you get involved in the selection of yearlings at the sales, or is it just you? Is Grace involved? Is JD or Will involved, or does everyone have their own sort of job and they stay out of that?
Look, I really enjoy looking at the horse and picking the horse. So I've done a lot of that over the last couple of years. JD does as well. But he enjoys more the selling part as well, where probably me, I enjoy the more training side and going to the races, communicating with owners. Selling, I can sell, but I prefer the training side. So that's why we work well. JD likes to focus on that stuff, and look, I help out all the time, but that's how it works. And yeah, look, I go look with Dean. What Dean does do is he goes and he knows exactly what we like and what we're looking for, and he'll come up with a list, and I'll generally start looking from second looks and then basically discuss with him which ones we like and which ones we think we can sell, and which ones we think we can afford. As you know, you go to the sales, it's very hard to buy a horse. The one that you want, they often go for too much and you get used to losing.
Yeah, I've been looking at your, the sales results, and Lindsay Park, as a general rule, won't get involved in the, the $1 million yearlings or anything like that. You do try and buy value.
Yeah.
Is that just something that was instilled to you by your father, or just, is there any rule to it for you guys?
Well, it's a big, when you buy a horse, what we try to do is buy between the 150 and 250 mark. And if it goes over that, we'd only be buying it if we have the horse sold down. It's more about pressure on us. We kind of want to not put too much pressure on ourselves. We own our business 100%. It's all ours. And if we go out and get a $5 million debt, that puts unnecessary pressure. So it's all about being able to buy and sell. And that's why we work so hard to get those results. And it's a whole team thing. Will, JD, Grace, Jenny McAlpine, Josh Ricks, Tom Ryan, Dave McKellar. There's heaps of other people involved. But it's just a process that has worked over the years, and we're not going to change. We might be able to buy a couple more around the 300, 350 mark. Tycoon Star, who won, we paid up to 400, but we had a lot of him sold down when we bought him, and he's actually come out and done really well. So I think you can buy.
You'd rather have owners giving your horses, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and it's more they are the clients that we can sell to, and they're the people that can afford that kind of horse. So, and it's good to get results. That's I think if people get results, they reinvest, and it goes from there. And then you create trust, and they trust you, and they trust what you're doing. And I think now we're in probably our third year, third or fourth. It's gone quickly, but we've had lots of 2-year-old success, and we can be trusted to get a horse up to win those good races and be competitive. And I think that's important for breeders to see and owners.
Yeah. Now Will joined you as as the third brother about, I don't know, it's probably less than a year now, and I think, well, obviously Brightside's won 8 Group 1 since then, and All-Star Mile, and I think that was Will's first Group 1 win as well with Mr. Brightside.
Yep.
Has he actually had another horse win a Group 1 for you, or
no,
has he
not
only
yet.
had Mr. Brightside?
No, Mr. Brightside's he's been the great horse for us. We've had a lot of nice chances. We've had a lot of placings, but they've been around the mark. Little Bros has been a winner for us, and then Gentleman Roy actually won a Group 1 and then lost it on protest.
Yeah, that's right.
Which wasn't. I still haven't recovered from that, but Yeah, no, I think in
So
my career, I think I've had about 26 Group 1 winners now, so which is good, very lucky.
excellent. That's
Yeah,
excellent. So there's three of you now, and you've got Euroa, you've got Flemington, you've got Pakenham, which you started up about a year ago. Now, in the modern training, the era of modern trainers, there seems to be every trainer's got multiple training locations. Do you
yep.
feel that training partnerships are really important for modern trainers now, trying to cover all of these different bases?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's for big stables, yes, I think it's very important because as important as it is to getting results, a trainer also needs to be able to have a life as well, be able to go have a holiday. And it's a 24/7 job training horses. Unfortunately, horses don't have holidays. They need to be fed
Yeah,
every day.
right.
They need to,
Yeah,
they need to be looked after. So when you go on holidays, sometimes it's very stressful because you can't relax. You still got to make people call you. People don't know you're on holidays, which is fine. You answer the calls, you deal with it. But when you're in a partnership, JD can cover for me, Will can cover for me while I'm away, and they can do it quite easily. So I think that's the best part of partnerships. We're brothers. We all, we get along. We work well together. There's no egos involved, which is important. And no one's better than anyone else, and we're all equal, and that's how the business works. And that's why we're successful. So it's super, super, I think partnerships are very important, and you can see most trainers have done it now. Sam Freeman's in partnership with his dad, Calvin McAvoy's in partnership with his dad, and it's a great way to bring young trainers through and give them the leg up they need. And I think it's really good for racing, and there's a really good core group of young trainers coming through now.
Do you split yourselves, the three of you, at different locations, or how does it work between you three of you?
With us three, what we try to do is we try all get to Euroa for Monday and Tuesday. That's when a lot of our planning takes place. We work out programs to get horses to races. We work out what happened with Saturday's runners, where we're going next with them. And then we just communicate. We work out who does all the pre-races, all the post-races, who does the follow-ups of the horses that ran, and then we just work it out. So generally I spend Monday to Wednesday up at the farm, then come down to Melbourne, go to Flemington and then Pakenham, or I will go to Pakenham and we will go to Flemington, and we just kind of work it out and make sure there's one of us in each case every time. But with 2 bases, it's very, very manageable.
Yeah, and I mean, from our experience with Lindsay Park, all three of you have rung me at a certain time after a horse has run, so it seems to work very well from the three of you. So obviously, communication within the group, there's lots of communication within the group for everyone to know what each of us is doing.
Lots of talking, lots of WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
And and it's one thing that we've changed a lot. We've gone from handwriting our worksheets all to digital, which has really helped and saved everyone a lot of time. Even our staff, they can all see their work and they can get questions answered without having to ask us, which helps everyone.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really common at the moment is people expanding into Sydney stables, Victorian stables, expanding into Sydney. Anthony and Sam just done it. Kieran's been there for a while. Mick Price and Junior are there. Has there been any sort of discussion with Lindsay Park of getting some stables in Sydney?
We used to have stables there 3 years ago, and we used to have a base there, but we actually sold it and Gay bought it. God bless Gay.
Yeah.
But that was our time that we were having a lot of change. We've got our business up and running well. Our numbers are really good now. I don't think this year, but in time, it's definitely something we'll consider. We just want to get things rolling really good here. At the moment where our property is, it's only 8 hours to Sydney. So it's actually not that hard to go to Sydney, and we've proven time and time again we can travel horses there and be successful. So we've got partnerships with, Will and Richard Freeman. They look after our horses for us. We often send people with them. Then they bring their horses down to us. Same with Gary Portelli as well. Like we just have, we use each other's facilities, and that works really well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I think we've learned a lot about you today, Ben. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Now we started our partnership with you guys a couple of years ago, and we've had 3 horses to the races so far: Zesty Man, Immortal Shield, and Snatched.
Yep.
And they've all won, so we've got a 100% winning strike rate with Lindsay Park, which is great. And again, as I mentioned before about the 2-year-olds, they've got their maiden wins out of the way early, which I think is a really important aspect to a horse, because then you can sort of work, plan their way to go through the grades. Otherwise, if you're still battling around those maidens, it's so tough to win a maiden in Victoria. And the longer you go, it gets even harder to get balloted out and things like that. We've got now a 2-year-old that we purchased last year at Melbourne Premier,
yep.
A filly by I Am Immortal out of the Cape Cross mare Noetic. Now this filly is a half sister to a horse called Victor the Winner. You probably know Victor the Winner very well. He's won a Group 1 in Hong Kong,
yep.
and he races against your dad's horse. What is it? Kai Ying Rising.
Yes, yeah. The poor horse.
And he, I know, poor horse. Well, he set a track record last start, Kai Ying Rising, and I think the reason he did that was because Victor the Winner was out and gone early on and setting up the fast sectional. So he just sat off the back and then bloused him and won easy. But and he's obviously a superstar. But this filly, I Am Immortal, is a horse that we raced with the Anthony and Sam Friedman, and he was he's now gone to start at Swettenham. And this filly, when we saw her at Premier with Lenny Russo, we thought she was probably one of the best I Am Immortals we'd seen to date at the sales. So because she was a half sister to a superstar sprinter, we just thought that she would develop into something good as well. Now, I Am Immortal, we would have thought would have thrown 2-year-olds, but we've learnt that he's actually not throwing 2-year-olds. They are bigger types. They take a bit of time to fill out their frames, and they're more 3-year-old types. So what have you, I know she's just been in for a prep now, her first real prep now, and I know she hasn't got to trial stage. What have you seen from the filly so far?
Really, really like her. She's your classic. She arrived to us and she's done so much developing. She's really grown. She's a big filly. She's 500 kilos, which for a 2-year-old that's very, very big. And that's the reason why we haven't been able to push her, David, because she's growing so much at the moment. She's going through that growth, that phase, and she's just that little bit immature, which isn't a bad thing. And what we've seen so far is really good. She's doing everything correct. She has a great attitude. She's very straightforward, which is good. She's working up the hill, carrying herself really well. But she's just telling us, we just recently, as you know, we did our surveys. We always survey them when they've been in 6 weeks. And those surveys was nothing bad, but it was telling us that she's just growing and she just needs a bit more time. So she's gone to the paddock, but that's, I think, it's got to be the best thing for her, because she's still growing. And when you're pushing 2-year-olds when they're growing, that's when they do injuries. And I think which we have done, we're sending her to the paddock to eat grass. This time of year it's warm. They absolutely thrive. And next preparation, when we get her in, we'll definitely be getting her to the trials and we'll be able to see what she has. But at this stage, she's done a couple preps with us, but she's just not ready to be pushed, which is very normal. It happens to a lot of our 2-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, not many 2-year-olds will run before Christmas anyway. I think,
Correct.
Less than 5% of the population of 2-year-olds will race before Christmas. So now you talk about pushing the 2-year-olds, they run up the hill. Do you find that that's easier on their joints or puts more pressure, or how does the up the hill work with 2-year-olds?
It's something that I've worked with my whole life. We had hills in Angaston. We've got hills here in Euroa. So what I'd like you learn how to use properties, and what the hill is good is it really takes the pressure off those knees and joints when you're working up the hill, and you can get a horse fit without having to do too much work. And I think that's the key. And you get a bit of an idea with the 2-year-olds. You watch them, and if they're breaking 12 seconds in their first prep, they've normally got a bit of speed. Working up a hill, it's an 8% incline at Euroa, and it's the way they do it. And you just watch them. You just watch and see how they do it, see how they come through it. Some horses just get it totally wrong in their first ever gallops. They have no idea, and it's amazing how they can improve out of sight. So many times I've gone, wow, I cannot believe how much this horse has improved. Totally different horse. So it's 2-year-olds are very tricky. You have them for 1 minute, and then they're shinny or they've got a sore knee the next. So you just got to be really patient with them. But when you get them right, and if they're early, it's a good opportunity to win some good money.
Yeah, you talk about those survey scans that you just did. You do them on all 2-year-olds.
Yes.
That's the benefit of having probably the vets close to you there, is that you can, I mean, that's the way to break down a 2-year-old if you push them before they're ready.
Definitely. And that's the whole thing. We're so lucky. We've got Dr. Dave McKellar, who's one of the leading vets here in Victoria. He works full-time for us. He has a couple of vets that work at Euroa, and if we're worried about a horse, I can literally ring up and they can look at it within 5 minutes. We've got our own X-ray machines, own scoping machines. We can do everything bar surgery. So it's something that it's really good to do. We do the surveys, and quite often we find issues that you wouldn't actually pick up unless you didn't do the surveys. And I think that's a key to our success with 2-year-olds. We're not actually pushing them thinking they're going good and then they're breaking, and then you're giving them a holiday anyway because they've hurt their knee or they've gone super shin sore or something like that. So that's an asset we have, and we're very spoiled. When you're over and you're travelling courses and you have to wait for the vet to come in, you go, oh God, we're lucky when you're at the farm.
Absolutely, that's an advantage. And also, I think with your 2-year-olds, you do sort of private jump outs there before you take them into town to put them into sort of an official jump out.
Yeah, generally, if a horse is in Melbourne and at an official jump out, they're able to get on the grass at the farm, which is one of our best assets. They're able to jump down the back straight over 600 metres. If they do that well, they're ready to go have a jump out off property. So generally, you'll see the horses that get to trial stage, they've ticked all the boxes so far. They're sound. They do everything correct. But quite often, horses don't get past, e.g. your horse, that stage because they're not ready to be pushed, and that's why we back off them. And it's about pushing them at the right time.
So she's now spelling at Euroa. So your spelling paddocks in Euroa, are they a long way away from the track so that the horses don't hear that stimulation of track work?
Yep. So it's 1,600 acres, the whole property, and we've got lots of spelling properties, and it's lovely and quiet. And again, David, that's something that we really focused on and changed. We really focused on how we spelled horses, because if your horses spell well, they come in with good condition, you've got more to work with, and you've got more of a horse. So that's something we do focus on. We have all different types of spells that horses have. Horses that need extra attention, they will get paired together, and we kind of work it out. So, and our staff at home do a great job. So spelling's a big part of horse training. It's something that people don't really look at that much. And if a horse spells well, you just have a horse and plenty of horse to work with. So that's another thing we changed when JD and I and now Will were able to take over the family business.
Beautiful. And the last question for you that everyone wants to know, can you tell the difference between JD and Will?
Easy, with my eyes closed. When you see it every day, it's very easy.
I've worked it out now too. I get a lot of owners.
Yeah.
I get a lot of owners coming up to me and saying, which one's that? And I've worked it out myself now, so I can easily...
Just know Hazy. G'day, Hazy. You can't go wrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. It's been great. I think the listeners would have learned a lot about you, and you've had some great success over the last 2 years, and I'm sure you've got more to come. And hopefully that success will come with the dream team as well. So thanks for your time tonight, and we'll see you on track very soon.
Sounds good. See you soon.